Doamnelor, domnilor, bun găsit! Începe Ediție limitată, sunt Marius Constantinescu. Astăzi episod consistent cu 3 autori diferiți din 3 zone distincte ale ficțiunii. Ce îi unește? Notorietatea internațională și eticheta sub care sunt traduși și publicați în România, Humanitas Fiction. Este vorba de Maja Lunde, Eshkol Nevo și Matteo Strukul. Scriitoarea norvegiană Maja Lunde a atins celebritatea mondială odată cu romanul Istoria albinelor, tradus și publicat în peste 30 de țări. A urmat Istoria apelor și Ultimii cai din stepă, iar al 4-lea volum al acestei serii dedicate abuzului asupra mediului și fragilității acestuia este așteptat în anul 2023.
I would start by saying that for a writer concerned with environmentalism, this past 10 months seemed to be a gold mine. How was it for you?
Well, in the beginning, I was quite scared. The world changing literally overnight from the 11th to the 12th of March in Norway. And we all just locking down. It's been quite strange, and actually I wrote a book about it because it was hard to write fiction when you sort of felt like you were in a fiction story. But I wrote a diary which was published in Norway and Germany, called The First Days. But it's very strange to see how everything becomes a habit, and now this feels like it's been like this forever.
Your books raise questions and dig up anxieties related to extinction and the abuse we apply to the natural resources. Do you think that people are more responsive to these matters when they are wrapped up in fiction?
Fiction can evolve our feelings in a way that scientific reports and journalism not always do. And it's different to read the numbers on how 2041 will look with climate changes, and to actually step into it, being there through another person and seeing it and feeling it. So fiction has a unique way of evolving our feelings, and that is probably why it can hit us so hard as well.
Now, both your books translated into Romanian, The History of Bees and The End of the Ocean, or Blue, deal with loss and transformation due to a natural catastrophe, but through a family or even an individual scaled lens. Do you think it makes it and it makes us more aware when we have this kind of lens?
At least that's what the readers tell me, that they get involved in the histories about nature, about they suddenly see the insects in the nature around them when they read The History of Bees, and when they read The End of the Ocean, they feel grateful for being able to have a glass of water.
Right.
But of course, what a lot of readers tell me is that they relate to the parents and children stories in the books, because all my stories are somehow about parents and children.
Why exactly a quartet? Why 4 of them?
Well, when I was writing The History of Bees, in the beginning I actually thought it would be a standalone. But when I dived into that material, into stories about nature and people, nature and man, all these other stories started to grow, and I got so many other ideas, and I suddenly started to watch the world from a different angle, and I realized I wasn't done with one book, and that I had material enough for 4 books, and I knew from the very beginning how I wanted the story to end, because this is actually one big story. It's like a big jigsaw puzzle with a lot of pieces. They all fit together.
Is it the message like stop wasting water, or the effect like if you keep wasting water, this or that will happen, that represents your starting point?
No, I never start with a message. I don't even know what the message of my books are. I start with the stories, I start with the themes, I start with the people I write about. And for me, writing is always about going on the inside of the story, about being inside someone else's mind, and about living that story and feeling that it's true. And I never think about readers when I write, which maybe sounds a bit strange, but I feel that when I think about the reception of the books, I lose contact with the story and I lose contact with the truth.
Do you allow yourself to inhabit your own characters? I mean, do you even try to go as far as depriving yourself of water, or I don't know, doing things somehow similar to your characters in order to deliver the message to your readers more accurately?
I do. I was really thirsty when I wrote The End of the Ocean. And I've been sailing. This is also a book about sailing, about the ocean.
It is.
And
right.
I've been sailing a lot throughout my life. I sailed on my father's boat every summer when I was little. And it's actually my father's boat I write about in the book. And I also spent 1 year at the school ship when I was 17. So I do know, I mean, the ocean is definitely my element. But also to really feel how it is to live in a refugee camp, because part of this book is going on in a refugee camp in France in 2041, in a quite changed Europe, where there has been several years with almost no rain, and to understand how it is to live in a refugee camp, I actually went to visit different camps in Greece and got to know people there and try to understand how they lived, and to see the despair, but also to see the light.
Now, maybe a rather peculiar question, because fewer European countries, at least, seem to be greener and cleaner than Norway. Is there a parallel reality there that has led you to become such an environment-concerned author?
Well, that's the paradox of Norway, I think, that we seem like a green and pristine country.
Absolutely.
But still, we have all our money either from oil or hydroelectricity. And I didn't know that when I started to research for these books. This book is very much about how a conflict around water and around exploitation of waterfall can develop in a small community. And we see that all over the world, you know, and we have a lot of these conflicts in Norway and had them, especially in the 1970s. So the book is based on one of these conflicts. And 70% of the Norwegian waterfalls are in pipes. That's a lot. Yes. And when you look at the Norwegian map, you will see that there is hardly any wild nature left. Most of what we think of as wild isn't actually wild, because we have water plants, we have electricity, going through the landscape, and and the ocean. I mean, we have all these oil platforms spread out. We earn so much on the oil, especially, which is the single biggest problem we have in the world right now, is climate changes due to oil.
Prior to this quartet, you have written several books for children. Who is easier to address in environment matters, the youngsters or the grown-ups?
Oh, the youngsters, definitely. They have understood it. And they, I mean, that's why they have marched in the streets. They are scared. They fear their future. And they should, because we are not doing enough nearly. But hopefully there are some, lights in the end of the tunnel by the end of this year. I mean, we have Biden. He wants to go back into the Paris Agreement. And we also see now that the pandemic actually might have helped us a small step in the right direction when it comes to climate emissions.
The History of Bees came out when you were 40. Were you prepared for such a global exposure?
Oh, no, definitely not. If I was to be prepared for something like that, I would have like a huge hybris. No, I didn't know if I didn't know if anyone would be interested in that book. I didn't know. I wrote it alone. I didn't talk to almost anyone about it. I just really needed to write that book. And then I sent it to different publishing houses to make sure I found the right editor. And they were all extremely eager to have it.
Like you've already said, on this larger frame with the world collapsing in the background, there is always a parent-children tension explored in your books. Why this particular field in the vast human relationship landscape?
I mean, why not? It's the most interesting relationship we have, I think. We are all children of someone, and we know how difficult that can be. And a lot of us are parents as well, and we know how extremely difficult that can be. It's a relationship that is constantly changing. I mean, I've been together with my husband since we were 21, and it's pretty much the same, I think, every year. We are not really, I mean, we changed, of course, when we were in the 20s, but now it's quite stable. We know who we are as a couple. But with my children, it's completely different because they are changing all the time. So I have to try to change with them. And that's extremely hard. And being a parent is also hard because you take so much of your inner emotions, your own wishes and your own hopes, and try to put them onto your children, and you forget that they are completely different from you, and that your hopes and your wishes are maybe not theirs at all, because they're a
different person. Yes.
And also, I think what is so strong about this relationship is how much you put into it, and that's why it's so difficult as well, because you invest so much, both being a parent and being a child. So that's also why you are you can sometimes tiptoe around those you love the most, much more than you do with other people. And that is probably because we have invested so much.
You write about various forms of the world ending, all of them more or less plausible, more or less remote, but certainly relatable to, and some of them even happening as we speak. Can fiction resolve things?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm the right person to answer that, but I think, as I said earlier, fiction can make us get emotional about something. And instead of looking at something at a distance, fiction can force you into feeling. And that makes fiction different from anything else.
If fear cannot make us wiser, what can?
I mean, all my books, and definitely the fourth one I'm writing right now, all my books are about education. All my books are actually about books. All my books are about the value of knowledge. And we know that actually one of the most important things we can do to make the world a better place is to give girls education. So I would say books and fiction can actually be a big part of the solution, but in knowledge is also the answer, I think.
Well, thank you for underlining that, which leads me to my final question, because man is the worst destroyer, but is man the ultimate healer as well?
I don't know if we can heal the planet. I think the planet, most of the species on this planet would probably be better off without us. But still we can mend. And we could be able to solve the problems we have made and make the future, I mean, to make up for our mistakes. We still have the time, but we have to work really quick.
Despre Eshkol Nevo, marele amosoz a spus că este cel mai talentat scriitor israelian al tinerei generații. Eshkol Nevo deține cea mai importantă școală privată de scriere creativă din Israel și este considerat mentorul unei generații de scriitori în formare. Romanele lui sunt toate bestselleruri, iar două dintre ele, Simetria dorințelor și Trei etaje, au fost și dramatizate. În plus, Trei etaje a fost și ecranizat, iar filmul regizat de Nani Moretti a fost nominalizat la Palme d'Or la Cannes în 2021. You are writing about friendship, and while reading your book, I was thinking of a quote that I remember from a Stephen King novel, where Stephen King says that in order to maintain a true friendship, there's always a special need of some kind of a fraud between those who are the parties of that friendship. How would you comment on that?
Well, I'm actually, when I start writing a novel, there's always a question I want to ask. I never really get answers while writing, but the question of friendship, why does it begin? What stops it? How can we deal with changes that our friends are going through? And what you refer to, what level of truth are we able to accept from our friends? These all were the questions I was writing about, specifically about male friendship.
Yes, I was going to ask you about male friendship because you have chosen 4 men. You could have chosen 4 women or 2 women and 2 men. Which is the difference between the friendship between women and men, in your opinion?
I think I'm trying to claim that there isn't any difference. There is the cliché of the difference.
Yes.
And I'm kind of rejecting it in this book because one of the reasons I chose to write about male friendship is that it's neglected. It's not a lot of books about it. In my country, usually if there's a description of male friendship, it would be connected to the army. They are surviving the enemy together. And I know from my own life a different kind of male friendship, men who can talk with each other, who can support each other in times of distress. I just came on the plane here to Bucharest, and I heard the conversation between 2 Israeli men supporting each other. One of them was in a time of crisis. So this is the kind of friendship I know. This is the kind of friendship I grew up with, and I wanted to give it a place in culture.
When do we prove friendship to its best, in times of crisis or otherwise?
Well, I think friendship starts not from a crisis. Sometimes it starts from a sense of humor. There's the moment in the book when maybe the strongest friendship in the book is between Yuval and Churchill.
Yes.
And why does it begin? Because he's the only one, Churchill is the only one to understand a joke Yuval makes. And when I think about my friendships in life, usually they start from joy, from humor, from enjoying traveling together, from enjoying watching football. But then you can judge the strength of friendship by the support you get or you give, definitely.
You have already mentioned two of the characters. There are four, but it is true that Churchill and Yuval make like the core, with the other two being like supporting characters, you know. Was that an intention or it just came out like this?
Well, nothing was intentional in this book. I started writing it out of a writer's block I had in another book. Yeah, I had to write like a serious writer's block. And then I thought, what am I going to do? And I remember that there's a World Cup ahead of me in the summer. And I had this idea of publishing a short story, like to honor the World Cup. And I started writing a short story about four friends who write their wishes during the World Cup of 1998. And then it developed into a longer story, and then to a novelette, and then to a novel. So not a lot was planned here. But yes, I think that the main friendship and the main treason is with Yuval and Churchill.
I'm sure that most of your friends looked for referential insights in the book. How would you reply to them?
Well, it's a professional hazard.
Yeah.
You have to take into consideration. Well, actually, they were extremely supportive. I dedicated the book to my friends, and I gathered them, all of them, when the book was about to be published. And it's based on a true event that truly happened. We wrote wishes in the World Cup of 1998, my real friends. So they were all kind of thrilled from the fact that there's a book based on our story. And then there was a theater play, an adaptation 7 or 8 years later, so we went to see the theater play together. So instead of being a source of distress or insult, it was more like something that got us together. Of course, there were people who kind of found themselves in the book, but I didn't do copy-paste with no one. There was no copy-pasting. It's a big salad there. I took a face from one friend and an annoying characteristic from another, and like an attraction to a certain kind of women from the third one, and then a character was built.
Why this specific age group? It's not the 40s when we are supposed to have some sort of a crisis. It's not the 20s when everything happens, everything begins. It's the early 30s.
Yeah, it's the early 30s, the late 20s and the early 30s. Maybe it's the time when you can sense the urge to make decisions and the inability to make decisions, the urge to choose and the inability to choose. And maybe it's the most dramatic, at least I don't know how is it in Romania, but and in our society it's the time where people are expected to have a serious job, maybe a serious girlfriend, and sometimes they're not able to. So I'm kind of still fascinated by this age. You know, this book was published years ago in Israel. Now it's alive again in Romania. But when I read it again and when I talk with people about it, I found that the questions are not age dependent. Like, what do I want to do in life is still a relevant question when you're 40. Who are my friends? Who do I trust is still a relevant question. In what way do we change throughout life? Definitely a relevant question to a midlife crisis. So it's maybe it focuses on an age, but it's not. But the questions are bigger.
Just because you said the book was published years ago, I was going to ask you if you have witnessed a shifting in the idea of friendship due to technology and to the fact that we are more and more alienated by technology. I just take a very simple frame. If we have four friends being together, probably three of them are already attached to their phones.
Yeah, I was thinking about it when I came here. Actually, at the flight, I thought, what did time do to this book? And in what way will it be read now? And I thought to myself, yeah, on one hand, they don't have cellular phones in the book.
Yes.
And it would probably be very evident if we would read it right now. And if you're asking me personally, I miss these times when I could sit with my friends, with my real friends, without competing with their cellular phones. I definitely miss it. There is a sadness in it, in losing this insulation kind of that you are without the cellular phone. But talking about the book, this book is still read by young people in Israel, in Italy. It's kind of a cult book. They relate to it. So maybe the core issues of friendship, of love, technology did not change them as much as we think.
We were talking years ago about your first Romanian published book, and I was telling you it was really cinematic. And actually, you told me there was going to be a film in Italy based upon that book. Well, while reading this book, I also thought that it's a very, very nice exercise and also like an homage paid to the idea of word and what you can do with words. I mean, you more than once emphasize the power of words. One of the main characters is a translator, so words are his field of interest and actually his job. And you more than once seem to have to take this pleasure in playing with words. Is my impression correct?
Well, it's beautiful. And I think the narrator is a translator.
Yes, yes.
And he does not aspire...
You made it more clearly than me.
Yeah, and he is not aspiring to be a writer, but he finds himself writing, and he finds himself discovering the power of writing and the power of documenting life through writing. So maybe yes, it's also a book about discovering the meaning that writing can give to your life,
exactly.
And the meaning that you can understand events that happen in your life through writing about them. When I think about my own life, if you would have met me when I was 18 or 19, watching the World Cup of 90 or 86, I wouldn't have wrote in my wishes that I want to be a writer. It kind of struck me. I was surprised by the fact that I became a writer. So I discovered it when I was at that age of 28 or 27. So in a way, that the main character, his road is kind of similar to mine. So yeah.
Music is also very present in your book. In our last dialogue, you told me that your favorite song was Keen's Somewhere Only We Know. If you were to choose a specific song to accompany this book, what would your choice be? Quick association, Stand By Me. Which nice. I think you mentioned Stephen King before. Yes. It's like the book based on his novel, Stand By Me, with the four friends, had this theme song. So maybe that's where my association is coming from. And also another thing that comes to my mind is You're Not Heavy, You're My Brother. You remember this line? I won't sing it live on Romanian TV, but... We're not live, we can edit it later.
Okay, still okay, too dangerous.
I see.
But You're Not Heavy, You're My Brother is this beautiful line because... and you know, I just had this happening in my real life last week. With people you really love, you're willing to go through their bad times and to accept their weaknesses and their problems if you really love them. So they're not heavy, they're your brothers.
Last question. Which was the best World Cup final that you have seen? Or the best according to
Wow.
you, yes.
The most, definitely the most frustrating is the one described in the beginning of the book, where we were all supporting Brazil.
Yes.
Okay? Israel does not have a qualifying team. And
Romania no longer, so yeah.
But we are worse. We are so bad that there's not even a hope. So because we are hopeless, every Israeli finds his own foreign team to support. So
Absolutely.
we all supported Brazil, each for his own reasons. And then they lost tragically to France, and that was the most tragic final of all. And I think I loved when Brazil won 2-0 against Germany. I think it was maybe 4 years later with Ronaldo.
Yes.
That was a pure joy, and I remember all of us celebrating and happy.
Prozatorul italian Matteo Strukul este îndrăgostit de România, de Dracula și de istoria cu accente gotice sau anecdotice. Tocmai din acest atașament pentru faptul istoric ficționalizat s-au născut romane mult prizate de publicul larg, dedicate unor figuri precum Giacomo Casanova sau Dante Alighieri. Am stat de vorbă cu Matteo Strukul despre cartea pe care i-a consacrat-o titanului vizualității, Michelangelo Buonarroti.
A Firenze, gli affreschi della Cappella Sistina, il Giudizio Universale, la Pietà di San Pietro, insomma, sono opere di una tale potenza, di una tale magnificenza, sia per come lui sa modellare il marmo, che sembra quasi velluto, no? Basta vedere le pieghe delle vesti o le espressioni dei volti o la definizione dei muscoli che sa dare attraverso l'uso di scalpello e martello, sia poi quello che invece si vede a livello di pittura, no? La ricchezza dei colori, i corpi perfettamente modellati. È molto difficile non essere appassionati di Michelangelo.
Fra gli artisti del Rinascimento sembra che Leonardo e Michelangelo siano quelli su quello si è detto pressoché tutto. Qual è stato il suo punto di partenza per il romanzo?
Su Michelangelo, secondo me, non si era raccontata una parte molto importante della sua vita, che è quella che va dal periodo, diciamo, nel periodo tra il 1542 e il 1547. Sono 5 anni molto particolari, perché sembra che Michelangelo in quegli anni, e sono anche gli anni in cui lui termina finalmente la realizzazione del Mosè, quella grande statua che è al centro del monumento funebre dedicato a Giulio II nella Basilica di San Pietro in Vincoli. Ebbene, in quel periodo lui sembra aver aderito a un circolo cosiddetto degli spirituali, che aveva a capo un cardinale molto potente, il cardinale Reginald Pole, e del quale circolo faceva parte anche una sua grande amica, Vittoria Colonna, poetessa, fine intellettuale, eccetera, eccetera. Ebbene, questo circolo sembra in un periodo in cui c'è stata da poco la grande rivoluzione della riforma protestante con Martin Lutero.
Il suo è un romanzo storico. Come mantiene l'equilibrio fra il fatto storico e la fizione?
Beh, allora, questa è la domanda delle domande. Ma è sempre molto complicato, no? Sono partito, come già avevo fatto per i medici, quando avevo consultato le storie fiorentine di Machiavelli o con Casanova, ad esempio, sono andato a rileggermi l'intera autobiografia di Casanova. Nel caso di Michelangelo sono partito dalle rime e lettere, c'è una bella edizione qui in Italia che raccoglie tutte le lettere di Michelangelo e i suoi sonetti, perché Michelangelo era anche un fine poeta. Poi naturalmente ho studiato che cosa? Ho studiato le posizioni di alcuni grandi critici di storia dell'arte, e quindi Antonio Forcellino e Adriano Prosperi anzitutto, che erano coloro che appunto raccontavano con più attenzione questa dimensione del Michelangelo in qualche modo eretico.
Il romanzo ha un carattere visuale frappante. Ha mai pensato di trasformarlo in sceneggiatura?
Allora, sì, ci ho pensato. Chiaramente poi nel cinema e per la TV è sempre molto complicato, no? Nel senso che almeno in Italia, questo è un po' un peccato secondo me, c'è sempre una certa paura quando si ha a che fare con un romanzo storico, perché ovviamente l'adattamento cinematografico comporta una serie di costi a livello di ricostruzione, ovviamente molto complicato. Questo va detto e ne sono consapevole. Però per esempio so anche che Mel Gibson è un grande fan di Michelangelo, addirittura aveva finanziato il restauro del David di Michelangelo a un certo punto insieme a Sting, questo per dare un'idea di come effettivamente poi l'arte italiana magari venga supportata a volte da realtà anche non italiane, no? In ogni parte del mondo amano Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo Buonarroti, Raffaello Sanzio. È anche vero che gli italiani a volte secondo me dovrebbero valorizzare di più quello che hanno, e il mio tentativo nello scrivere romanzi dedicati a Casanova, a Michelangelo, va proprio in questa direzione. Poi confesso anche che io sono un discreto fan del cinema rumeno, penso a Tudor Giurgiu, a Bogdan Mirița, a Cornelio Arumburu, eccetera, e quindi provocatoriamente potrei quasi dire: ma sarebbe bello magari parlare con uno di loro e capire se potrebbe mai interessargli un film su Michelangelo, perché effettivamente il cinema rumeno è un cinema che è cresciuto tantissimo e io tra l'altro quando posso ho frequentato parecchie edizioni del Transilvania International Film Fest e l'ho sempre trovato molto affascinante e molto propositivo, molto moderno, molto, come dire, molto pronto a cogliere le nuove sfide, ecco, che il cinema propone. Per cui, insomma, chi lo sa.
Tra i grandi dell'Alto Rinascimento italiano, cioè Leonardo, Michelangelo, Raffaello, quest'ultimo Raffaello sembra quello lasciato un po' fuori dalla fiction, sebbene la sua breve vita fosse stata veramente spettacolare. Come spiega questo?
Allora, sicuramente Raffaello è un genio, è in qualche modo il punto di equilibrio, no? Perché comunque nelle sue opere troviamo il paganesimo che dialoga con il cristianesimo, troviamo il grande equilibrio formale, troviamo la bellezza forse distillata nel modo più puro, basta vedere le sue Madonne, no? Ecco, però forse il motivo per cui, questo ovviamente è solo la mia opinione, Raffaello non desta questa attenzione quasi maniacale che c'è per Leonardo e per Michelangelo, è che, come dice un mio amico Antonio Forcellino, Raffaello è la buona notizia, quindi Raffaello è la bellezza, Raffaello è la buona notizia, e di solito la bontà fa meno notizia della cattiveria. Michelangelo è invece tormentato, pieno di conflitti, arrabbiato, severo e anche violento, no? E dall'altra parte invece c'è Leonardo che è, come dire, è l'aria, è anche, se vogliamo,
soprattutto intellettuale, tutto nascosto dentro di sé, ecco.
Scienziato, ma è architetto, ma è pittore, e poi anche quando dipinge non riesci mai ad afferrare esattamente qual è il significato, motivo per cui un'opera di Leonardo apre sempre 10.000 interpretazioni. La sfortuna, diciamo così, di Raffaello sta proprio in questo suo grande equilibrio, in questa sua bellezza, che forse, come dire, desta un po' meno interesse, perché è come se fosse perfettamente concluso il suo lavoro, no? E quindi tutto sommato che cosa puoi dire?
È vero che soprattutto su Michelangelo è stata una intera corrente letteraria a presentarlo come un uomo impossibile, come diceva lei, arrabbiato, pieno di capricci, di invidie, tormentato, anche chiuso nella sua omosessualità, perché no? Invece il suo Michelangelo, quello che incontriamo nel romanzo, è un po' diverso.
Ma allora è un po' diverso perché parto proprio dal presupposto che Michelangelo intanto ha ormai 68 anni, quindi forse il fatto che teniamo presente che Michelangelo visse fino a quasi 90 anni, 89, quindi visse molto a lungo. Il fatto che forse arrivi a 70 anni in qualche modo lo vediamo da una parte un po' più pacificato, nel senso meno violento, dall'altra parte però è anche un Michelangelo che sta facendo una profonda ricerca spirituale e non ha più bisogno di dimostrare, ecco, di essere il più grande, perché tanto ha già affrescato la Sistina, ha già affrescato il giudizio universale, per cui in realtà è già stato consegnato in qualche modo all'eternità.
Qual è per lei l'opera michelangiolesca che la tocca più di qualsiasi altra?
Il Mosè. Il Mosè di Michelangelo è l'opera che mi tocca più di tutte e spiego anche perché. Quando io ho cominciato a scrivere questo romanzo non ero certo, non ero sicuro di riuscire a portarlo a termine. Ho scritto questo romanzo terrorizzato, che è una sensazione che non auguro a nessuno. Per esempio, ho scritto Casanova, ero felice, ho scritto quel romanzo con il sorriso. Con Michelangelo ho scritto con il terrore addosso, perché quando vedi le sue opere ti rendi conto che c'è qualcosa di disumano, di sovrumano. Io sono andato a vedere più volte a San Pietro in Vicoli la statua del Mosè e quando la guardo, vuoi per la dimensione, vuoi per l'espressione, vuoi per la potenza, per il dettaglio, come dicevo prima, delle pieghe del vestito, dell'abito, lo sguardo, eccetera, io a un certo punto esco dalla chiesa perché non riesco a reggere lo sguardo e la visione di quella statua. Mi fa paura, ecco, Michelangelo mi fa paura. Quando sono entrato a vedere la Cappella Sistina e uno immagina come possa lui aver dipinto la volta che sta a 20 metri dal suolo, eccetera, eccetera, è una cosa che veramente non è umana. Io mi ricordo che sono entrato, l'ho vista e ho pianto.
Se qualcuno vedesse le opere di Michelangelo senza sapere nulla sull'uomo Michelangelo, che cosa gli racconterebbero su di lui?
Ma appunto penso proprio questo, cioè questo talento straordinario, la grande capacità di... Teniamo sempre presente che Michelangelo era un cavapietre, quindi era uno che andava a scegliersi i blocchi di marmo nelle cave e aveva questa capacità di vedere nel blocco di marmo già, come dire, l'opera realizzata. Per cui lui diceva, io avevo il blocco di marmo e vedevo all'interno di quel blocco una pietà, quindi non so, una Madonna con Cristo tra le braccia, oppure un David, oppure la statua del Mosè, e insomma tutto quello che lui ha realizzato, no? Ecco, secondo me questa sua capacità di modellare il marmo come se fosse velluto è qualcosa che tu non puoi non vedere, cioè questa cosa ti arriva in faccia e pensi che sia fatta con la schiuma, con il gesso, con qualcosa, e invece poi se hai la possibilità di andarlo a toccare o comunque insomma è incredibile. Chiunque si rende conto della grandezza di un autore come questo.
Doamnelor, domnilor, ediția limitată de astăzi se închide aici. Sunt Marius Constantinescu. Citiți nelimitată!